And we're back, Daru Strong Podcast, episode number 16. Today, I had the opportunity to talk to one of my mentors, one of the guys that started me out in this industry, Mr. Joe DeFranco, Coach Joe D. DeFranco's gym and the way he goes about training his athletes is something that every coach should strive for. Every new coach coming up in the game, they need to take a look at how Joe D actually developed his system and then built his brand to a world-renowned brand. He has his own podcast now. He worked with well over, I want to say, 200 NFL athletes, and then also again now working with Triple H for the WWE. Just does a tremendous amount of information and content, building his brand, building up, his gym there. And I get a chance to actually sit down and talk with him. Now, I've been on the Industrial Strength Show. You guys can check that one out with me and Joe as I actually talk with him about my methodologies of training. But now I get to sit down and pick his brain because, let's face it, I'm somewhat selfish on these podcasts. But that's okay because you guys get a lot out of it. But before we go ahead and jump into the interview, I want to make sure I mention my sponsors. First one is Revive MD. Revive MD is a supplement line that I trust and use for me and my athletes. You can check out my very own stack, my athlete stack that I use and have my athletes use. It's Daru Athlete Stack. You go on revivesubs.com, use the discount code DaruStrong20 to get 20% off your final purchase. Also want to make sure you guys remember that I do have an online mentorship program for coaches around the world. This is all online, so we go ahead. You can take all the methodologies, the principles, the assessment protocols, and the training that I do with all of my athletes, and I give to you in a portal fashion so that you have access to it for the rest of your life. So check it out on darustrong.com. Also, I want to make sure that you go on to the podcast YouTube channel, Daru Strong Podcast YouTube. Hit the subscribe button, and you can win a chance to get my 6-week off-camp training program for completely free. Everybody loves free. All right, now let's get into the interview.
Welcome to the Daru Strong Podcast. Daru Strong Podcast.
Let's go. Mind over matter. Put your mind somewhere else and keep going. That little voice in your head is trying to stop you from getting to where you want to be. Be successful and keep moving forward.
With your host and world-renowned strength and conditioning coach, Daru.
There he is.
Man, you look good, man.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I
look-
feel like shit, so I'm glad I look all right.
Bro, you getting lean, man. I see that. Well, I can't really see through the screen, but you look like you're a little bit leaning out there.
Yeah, I'm trying not to go the other way during this freaking quarantine. Everyone's going either one way or the other.
Yeah, it's bad out there, huh?
Yeah. And we're like I'm in the freaking heart of it over here in New Jersey, where it's still. I just literally a couple seconds ago saw the governor said something like he doesn't think gyms are going to open for another year.
Wow.
So
damn, bro.
People are going to start rioting, dude. It's going to get bad.
So how are you training? How are you doing with your clients? How are you doing that?
I'm just doing some FaceTime. Like I trained Stephanie McMahon via FaceTime and a couple clients that way. Yeah. But I'm, most of them, I don't have a ton of clients like in person. So that's why I'm all right. Most of my stuff has been online and our certification. Yeah. So I've been able to pay my bills, but if this was 10 years ago where I was making 100% of my living training people out of the gym, I would be freaking furious right now. I'd be fighting people.
I bet, man. Yeah, we're rolling now, so I'm just gonna keep flowing. Yeah. What I did want to talk about a couple of things is obviously I want to talk about CPPS. I actually have the books here. I have Strength Manual. I got Special Strength.
Oh, nice.
Got it for you, man. I'm actually going back over that because I'm working with my old high school football team now, and these kids
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just started. These kids are like all 4- or 5-star recruits. So like where we went to school, the football team's really good, obviously, and there's I think there's five kids right now going D1 at the moment for next year, and then there's a bunch of offers that these kids are getting. So it's good to actually train them as opposed to with the UFC guys. You know what I mean? It's different. It's like a breath of fresh air. But I did want to ask you, like, when you have those kids, What's the main thing that you're looking at to develop, from that perspective? We're talking like freshman all the way up to senior. I know there's different progressions from there, but what are you looking for, when a kid walks into the door and it's like, all right, I want to get ready for this season?
Well, football is, that's been my main sport working with my whole life, and it was my sport growing up. And it is a sport that is associated with training. Like there's, not every sport. Basketball, a lot of guys just play basketball all year long. And where football, it's different. It's like, you have football season, and then the off season's all about training. So most football players are, at least my experience and the ones I've worked with, are pretty gung-ho, and they want to get stronger and faster and more explosive in the off season. So I think the hardest part when I was working with a lot of the younger, like freshmen, 13, 14, 15-year-old age group, they want to, lift the heavy weights and do all the crazy stuff, but I would have to kind of pull in the reins a little bit and really get them to buy in on the whole movement quality thing. And we're going to get stronger, but like we need to perfect these movements first, the fundamental movement patterns of I'm sure you've seen it, like the amount of high school kids that can't just hip hinge just with their body weight, like push their hips back and keep their spine neutral, or do a not even a perfect, but like an acceptable body weight squat without, their whole body just crumbling and looking, falling over like a deck of cards. It's kind of, you get used to it, but it was shocking to me when I first started training kids. I was just like, oh my God, these kids can't do a body weight squat. They can't do a push-up. They can't do a single pull-up. They can't do a hip hinge. So that really is first. And I know a lot of the kids don't like it because they just want to see how much they could bench, and they want to throw a bunch of weight on their back. But I really focused in on like dynamic warm-up, movement quality, and what I did to keep them kind of happy and invested in the program and motivated and excited. That's why I got so big into the sled like early in my career, because that was the thing that I could say, listen, I know you're a bunch of meatheads and you want to lift heavy weights. You're not ready to put a heavy barbell on your back and squat yet, or, a heavy weight in your hands and bench, but I'll let you load up that damn sled and you could push it, pull it, drag it. That we could have competitions and, overload the musculature there, and then work with me. And you were going to work on your movement quality, a little bit more in the beginning of the workout and in the weight room. So that's that happy balance of like movement quality, but then give them the meathead stuff without hurting them, or, developing these improper patterns too soon. It's like a balance between those two things.
Yeah, so right now, that's exactly what I'm doing, honestly. And I'm not just saying that because you're here, by the way, Joe. But I will say this, the sled work has been super important for us, because of the fact that I can load it, super efficient, and honestly, what I'm seeing is those kids are super athletic. The kids that we have are super athletic, very fast, South Florida kids. So they got to get stronger, right? And they got to be able to move. So we're doing a lot of FRC right now. I'm huge into that. So we've been doing some controlled articular rotations and just some base like positioning, pails and rails. And then I take them out there and we do our sled variations, bring them back in and do some special exercises, more for smaller exercises, I would say, that can correlate over into giving them the more joint integrity and overall balance and symmetry of their bodies. What I have seen, though, is that ankle and hip mobility are limited. And I think that's because a lot of these kids tape their ankles too much, right? And they get fixed in that position. Can you explain, like, to the listeners, like, what happens when you have an athlete that gets put in these positions, or, any athlete, doesn't have to be a high school athlete, any athlete is put in a position all these times and develop these dysfunctional patterns? How do we try to get them out of that? And also ride that line of not, dipping into, decreasing their overall performance?
Yeah, it's such a common thing. And the ankle taping thing is a perfect example of that, because that just like, I know when I was a kid, I started playing football at 7. I didn't have any ankle issues, but my dad taped my ankles before every practice because that's what you saw the pros do. And what you think you're, taking these preventative measures. So, hey, I want to be safe. It's only practice. My dad's, just trying to look out for his son. Like, hey, you don't want to get hurt in practice. So let's tape your ankles. And even in that example, it's like you said, we're taking the mobility away from the ankle, which most athletes have locked up ankles as you mentioned. That's a huge problem. Now we're taping it, we're immobilizing it even more, which the ankle is meant to be a mobile joint. So now we're stealing any little mobility that we had. So what happens is you go up the chain, and now our knee, which is a joint that's built more for stability, the movement that your body's not getting from your ankle, it's going to kind of try to steal that from the knee. So now the knee is going to take the brunt of the stress and the trauma. When you cut, you stop, you change direction, and now you have these knee issues, and then you see guys, now they got ankles taped, knee brace, and then next thing you know, they're having a hip or a low back problem. So that's where practice and the off season is so important. You need to address those things, and coaches need to be educated on that kind of stuff. Not that I'm not completely opposed to taping an ankle if you had an injury for a game. Let's say even if it's a mental thing, for a little more support, you got to do what you got to do. But in practice, in the off season, when we're just training, that's where you want the minimal, braces, taping jobs, all that to a minimum, so we could actually develop that. And that's where dynamic warm-ups are so important. Like you said, some of the things that you're doing, they might not necessarily be the things that high school kids love to do, but you just gotta kind of explain to them, like, in order to put that heavy weight on your back and to start lifting heavy, and if you want to run faster, jump higher, if you could get your body to move better, the better you move, the less likely you will be to get injured, and the heavier you'll be able to lift, faster you'll be able to run. So it's just a necessary evil. It's kind of like dangling the carrot stick, like, hey, do these things over here that I need you to do, the ankle mobility, the hip mobility, do that stuff for me, so then you can put that heavy weight on your back and do the fun stuff that athletes like to do. So I'm not sure I even answered your question, but
no, that's good, man. That's perfect.
The ankle tape thing had me, because that's like a whole thing that I freaking we talk a lot about that, because it's such an issue. With not to get off on a tangent, but I worked with a female volleyball team a number of years ago, and they had seven of the 11 girls that I worked with tore their ACL the previous year. Wow. That's what prompted the coach to be like, all right, I think, and kudos to him. He realized, like, I'm either doing something wrong or there's something I don't know. Let me see if I could, seek some help here with someone who does this for a living, and sent the girls to us. It was a travel team. Okay. And 7 of the 11 girls that had blown out their ACL, rehabbed it, coming back for the next year. That was the first thing we did, because they all showed up during that first workout with the ankle braces on. I kind of explained the thing we just talked about and started them very slow, because their ankles were weak and immobile. So we started very slow with our strength training and our mobility and our dynamic warm-ups, but slowly built them up and developed the ankle mobility and strength, and then got into some traditional strength training and some lower level type plyometrics. And the next year, knock on wood, not one ACL injury or surgery. And I'm not taking all the credit for it, but it also kind of opens up your eyes to, like, man, these things could be prevented if you can't guarantee. Of course. We could certainly prevent totally, but we could reduce the risk drastically.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I found with working with so many combat sport athletes, is that because they're getting kicked and punched and kneed on a daily basis. We can only do so much, but we can give them the structural integrity, the balance, the coordination, the strength, and at least mitigate those non-contact injuries as much as possible. There's not a whole lot of non-contact injuries in the sport anyways, because obviously velocities aren't as, I guess, prevalent, as far as like sprinting and running and cutting. That's something now that I'm looking. I always like a challenge, Joe, and same with you, bro. It's like, now that I have this, it's like a newborn baby. Yeah. I'm like, all right, perfect. And I could grow these kids from like freshman year all the way into now. I want to backtrack a little bit. For those of you that don't know Joe DeFranco, you're living under a rock. If you know me, if you've been following me, I talk about this man a lot. He's been a pivotal part of my growth as a strength coach. Joe, can you give them kind of just a basic background? You don't got to go all into detail because I'm pretty sure you said this 1,001 times, but how you started in strength and conditioning, and how you built your brand to a world-renowned brand.
Yeah, the short version is, like I mentioned, I was obsessed with football. That was my sport growing up. My parents said at like 2-3 years old, I was, just when football was on, I was watching it, understanding it at an early age, became obsessed. Wanted to play in the NFL. At 4 years old, I knew that's what I wanted to do. So kind of dedicated the early years of my life was all about playing football. Started at 7 years old and was just obsessed with it. Training, begging. My dad was a New Jersey State Trooper, but he had a small private gym in Paterson, New Jersey, which was for state troopers, firefighters, some local cops, like it was kind of like police, fire, military. Everyone had their own key. It's real badass, hardcore type gym. So when I was 11, he finally took me to the gym, started training for football, saw the impact that it had. I remember that my first year lifting in the off season and then going and playing football. Like to this day, I remember I didn't make. They had weight, but I think like running backs had to be like under 103 pounds or something, and I was like 135 pounds. So I had to play tight end, because I packed on so much muscle, and I grew like 4 inches taller that year. But I just remember the first time hitting a dude at tight end, like one shot, and the kid did like a backflip, and I was like, holy shit, this whole lifting thing, there's really something to it. So then I just became obsessed with training and playing football. I went to Bergen Catholic High School, which is a football powerhouse here in New Jersey, still to this day. But my senior year, during training camp, I woke up one morning, literally went to bed one night, normal, woke up with this real bad nerve pain shooting down my leg and in my back, and was excruciating. Played the whole rest of the year with it, even played 2 years of college football with it, all during this time going to doctors. No one could figure out what the hell was going on. Fast forward 5 years later, they found a tumor that was growing from inside my sacrum out. And it finally grew enough where it, like, the bone split. And I was having I'd had like 8 MRIs, a bunch of different CAT scans, over 100 different medical procedures to try to figure out what was going on. And then one day, I guess the CAT scan showed like the perfect slice of the bone. And the doctor, I'll never forget it, I was at NYU, New York City. The doctor goes, holy shit, stop right there. Like, we found it. Because I was like a big medical mystery at the time. They see this tumor growing in my sacrum, go in for surgery the next day, have it removed. Thank God it was benign. But at this point, I had 4 surgeries at that point. My football career, I knew, was over. And I was devastated, cried myself to sleep many nights. And then finally one day I was just like, I can't feel sorry for myself the rest of my life. Like, the NFL career and dream is over. I need to occupy my brain with something. I can't just feel sorry for myself. Like, what else kind of fulfills me like playing football did? And the next best thing, or, even as much as I love playing football, I love training. Yeah. And that's where I made the decision, hey, I'll study exercise physiology in school, which I already had been, but I really kind of made the decision, this is going to be my career. And then when I graduated college, I got an internship at a sports performance facility, worked there for 5 years. Wow. And then with the little money I had, I opened up my first gym was a storage closet, a literal storage closet in the basement of an existing health club. Started training some local high school football players, developed a name for myself. Next thing I knew, there was a couple college kids. Then I had a couple guys from the New York Giants stop by and train with me. Wow. And at one point I had 11 starters from the New York Giants training in that storage closet.
Now hold on one second.
Kind of history.
I want to break this up, but everybody's heard. I'm pretty sure everybody's heard about the 500 square foot storage closet.
Yes.
I didn't know that you had the Giants in there at that time. How did that happen though? Did they just hear about you? Like, what was going on there?
Yeah. So I worked at another. I didn't have my own business right out of college. I did an internship and then I worked for someone else for 5 years. So I did develop a reputation like in my area as a top coach. So when I started my own gym or my own closet, whatever you want to call it, my own business, Dahani Jones was was a linebacker with the New York Giants at that time. Okay. He came over and trained with me. He was the first pro in the storage closet. Yeah. Then he, a couple players, he tells a couple players, another one or two linebackers like Brandon Shore and a couple of the other linebackers came in. Then my high school, when I was a senior in high school, Jim Finn was a sophomore. Jim Finn turned out, he went to University of Pennsylvania, was like all Ivy League stud, was the Mr. Irrelevant, last pick of the draft back in whatever that was, 1999 or something. Yeah. He was with the Colts. As I go into the storage closet, and this is, everyone's got a little bit of luck involved, in their career too. If you work hard enough, you know how that goes. But Jim signs with the New York Giants. So now I have a high school friend that plays for the New York Giants. So that's another one that kind of knows what I'm all about and has trained with me. So then once he came, he brought a couple more people, and then it kind of snowballed to the point where I had, like I said, 11 New York Giants. And what I'm even more proud of, though, seven high school kids that were in high school while they were training in the storage closet. They stuck with me, trained with me through high school, through college, and 7 kids ended up going to the NFL that were in high school when I first started my business. So there was some magic in that 500 square foot freaking storage closet.
Yeah, that's right there is a good way to tell the listeners, especially the young coaches out there. That's a testament to your knowledge, to your passion, to how you actually coach them, because they love being around you. Obviously, they wouldn't be stuck by you for 7 years, And I think that, like you said, there's a little bit of luck there. It's kind of who you knew, in the beginning, but then it was what you knew that kept you in the business with them. Now, with that, I know you grew that gym and then you went to another facility. Now, how many square foot was the next facility up?
I went from 500 square foot storage closet to my first own freestanding bit gym that I could kind of truly call my own, was 2,000, a little over 2,000 square feet, 2,000 and change. I was in there for 3 years, and then I moved directly next door, which was a double unit in the same industrial park. Gotcha. That was 5,000 square feet, and that was that was kind of my dream facility. That was where I thought I would be for the rest of my life. That was a lot of the YouTube videos that went viral over the years, and the documentary that was filmed at my gym. All that took place in this warehouse that I was in for close to 10 years between those two those two units.
Yeah, and now you grew that, and then it went into, I think it was a 5,000 square foot facility where that was your last big facility, and then on it, correct?
Then on it, yes.
Yeah. Now with the addition, because where I was at in Jersey when we went and met, when we did the podcast, do you like that style better, or is it just something that is kind of fell into your lap at this point in time of your career?
Yeah, it was. So now for those who don't know, I'm in a back kind of like full circle. It's not as small as the 500 square foot storage closet, but I have 1,000 square foot gym attached to a little podcast studio / room and an office. Yeah. So a little gym with 2 little offices, which is perfect for what I'm doing right now. Mm-hmm. But I also have realized that is the style. I just love that smaller, intimate, mm-hmm. whether you want to call it hardcore, whatever you want to call it. It's how I was raised. That between my dad's gym, growing up a diehard Rocky fan, mm-hmm. and watching when Rocky went and trained with Apollo, and then he trained in the barn, and in Rocky IV in Russia in the snow. Mm-hmm. I love the garage, the warehouse, so while the 5,000 square foot facility still had that feeling, it was just a little bit bigger. Mm-hmm. I don't know, with me, even though I could have a big, beautiful gym, my style is just, I like the atmosphere, the closeness when everyone in the gym. It's not like, someone's all the way down at the other end. You don't know what's going on. I like that smaller, intimate, gym. That I'm not a health club carpet and chrome guy. I'm a gym guy. So 100%. Even now in my career, while I could kind of be in any size gym that I want, I choose to just keep it small and kind of intense and focused. That's what I love to do.
Now you're still training some athletes, right? You still have a couple of athletes that you're working with right now. Triple H being one of them.
Yes, that's why I didn't need. Once I had kids, I realized, and this is just me. Mm-hmm. I can't. I'm just too obsessed and into the gym. I can't have a gym and just not be there. And I know. I'm a horrible businessman or whatever you want to call it, but I can't physically do it. If I'm going to have a 5,000 square foot gym with 10 trainers and, I have to be there all the time. And when I had kids, I was missing a lot. And I didn't love the business aspect of running the business and hiring people and, meetings all the time. So the online stuff started really taking off. We have an online certification and a DeFranco Insider membership community. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, all started taking off. And so I didn't have to train people 12, 14 hours a day anymore. I was able to cause I always want to train. I never want to get out of it completely because that is my first and foremost, first love is training. Mm-hmm. I just don't necessarily want to do it 12 hours a day anymore. So now I have my hand full, 5 to 6, 5 to 8 clients at a time. Mm-hmm. I do 1 to 2 sessions a day. It kind of gets my training fix in. I don't need the big facility. The people that I train prefer this smaller, private kind of underground spot because they're not bothered. Nobody's walking in off the streets to take pictures or, walk in and ask for a gym tour. It's, how that, it gets, especially you start training, I'm sure now with the UFC guys and the popularity of that. When I started training Triple H, those freaking WWE, and I didn't even train Triple H at my gym. I go to their house to train them. But I would show up in the morning and there'd be 3 or 4 people at my gym looking in the window, and I'd pull up asking if they have an appointment, and they'd be like, "Oh, you're Triple H's trainer. Is Triple H in there? Is he coming today?" And it first it was funny, but it started to become a real distraction. When I'm training someone and they're paying for my time, I don't want to be interrupted with people coming in off the street. Like, it started to be a real problem. So I don't have that problem anymore.
Yeah. So explain to me that, because I know I drive too now a little bit of ways, but I heard you drive is it 3 hours? Is that, did I get that right? Is it 3
round
hours?
trip, it's an hour and a half each way.
Okay. I thought it was 3 hours there and then 3 hours back.
I've had a couple that were over 2 with traffic. They were redoing the Tappan Zee Bridge about a year ago. Were steady for a year. It was 2 and change to and from. So it was a 4.5 hour round trip.
And that's at midnight, correct?
At midnight. Yeah.
So what were you doing? Were you taking naps before you went there, obviously, and then getting on there and coming back home? Because I know you had probably things to do in the morning, correct?
Yeah, and that was another thing that prompted me to kind of change my whole business model. Because when the first 2 years I trained them, I had clients at my gym from 10 a.m. till 5 p.m. I would drive home. I live about 15 minutes from the gym. My kids I had newborn twins. I'd go home, spend an hour with them, put them to bed, eat dinner, hop in my car, 9:30 at night, drive an hour and a half, to get to Connecticut at 11, start training 11:30, come home. I would get home about 2:33 in the morning, have a little something to eat. By the time I went to bed, it was 4. Now, I didn't have I wouldn't schedule appointments earlier than 10 a.m., but I had newborn twin daughters. So, they didn't give a shit that I went to bed at 4. They were up at 5. I was just unhealthy for 2 years. And that's what made me decide it was the hardest decision in the world, but shutting down the big gym and kind of downsizing and just downsizing the personal training aspect of my business. It was the best thing for my health and my business. It was just hard because it was like my dream gym, but it was really a good decision that I'm very glad I made to this day.
Yeah, I mean, you put your time in. Everybody knows that if they don't know you, but this man has put in, I would say, what, 20, you're 20, 30 years? I'm not aging you, am I?
I started at 21, professionally making a living doing this. I'm going to be 45 next month. So 24 legit years in this industry. Yeah,
the reason why, I remember watching the DVDs in high school, getting ready for high school football, so, and reading the articles, West Side for Skinny Bastards 1, 2, and 3.
Hey, look, my first product, for those who maybe don't know me, to age me a little more, people might not even know what a VHS tape is, but my first product, there was DVDs weren't even around. It was a big VHS tape. Then I thought I was all, tech savvy when we went to DVDs. Now everything's digital, but I started in the days of freaking, and I was considered from a technology standpoint, it was considered like an advanced, ahead of my times kind of thing, having a VHS tape out. So that's how old I am.
That's great. So now, because of what's going on, that's something that everybody right now, or at least in the fitness industry, the strength conditioning industry, that's where we're going. I have a huge amount of followers on that particular side. I do a lot of online content, as you know, programs and things like that. The digital side for us has really helped us make a living while not having to train or coach directly with the athlete. Now, with the I guess when you started the CPPS, what made you start that? Was it something we knew that we needed something, a certification that was going to be good for athletes or good for coaches that are training athletes? When did you start this, and why did you think it was so important?
I think this is a good lesson for everyone, because I'd love to take credit and be like, I had this great idea, but anything that I've done that has been successful, and I've certainly had my fair share of things that flopped, but all the most successful things, whether it's a product or a course like the CPPS certification course, it wasn't a grand idea. I didn't like plan it, lay up at night kind of thinking of a master plan or a way to make money. It was always just listening to clients and followers and people online and people that would attend our seminars, listening to them and hearing like what their needs were. And I went through this period of time where it was one of those things where a week didn't go by, a day didn't usually go by without a personal trainer or someone or an aspiring trainer or gym owner saying, what certifications do I need? What's the best certification? What certifications do you have? And in the beginning, I had CSCS, NASM, the advanced level, the 5-day one. I don't know what they're doing now. I had every certification under the sun. But when I started my own business, or actually just when I started as a full-time personal trainer and I got my first client, I was so disappointed because I realized like nothing that I learned in those certifications helped me on that first day. I'll never forget my first ever client was a high school a freshman soccer player who was also a kicker on the football team. And I go to do the first warm-up exercise of the first workout of my career. I tell the kid to do a body weight squat, and he tells me he just injured his knee and he can't squat. And like my whole world was messed up because I had the workout was written down on my paper. And I was just like, oh shit, what do I do? Like, exercise number 1, I got to think of a plan B. And it sounds stupid now. Like, okay, what's the big deal? Do something else. But like, when you're 21 and I was up all night, like writing this kid's program, all excited. And then he's like, oh yeah, I can't do that, man. I don't know what I did to my knee, but I can't bend my knee right now. And I was like, shit, they didn't teach me. I spent tens of thousands of dollars of money I don't have, and I didn't learn what to do, So, so times that by 1,000, all clients, as you know, every day you walk in the gym, you have a plan, but as soon as you talk to your client, you assess them, you're looking at them, and you're going to have to change something on that plan. You got to auto-regulate. That's life in this industry. And that's when I was like, after that happening to me for years, and then other trainers saying, well, what do you recommend? What cert is going to help me the most? I'm not opposed to recommending other services, other trainers, other products, but I just couldn't, for my own reputation, I didn't feel right saying, oh, just take this cert because it's okay. Like I was always honest. I said, listen, some places might require that you have a certain certification, but me personally, I don't feel any of those certifications made me a better coach. Like just gaining experience has made me a better coach. And
100%.
After 17 years of training people, that's when I teamed up with Jim Smith, and we were like, listen, it's going to be a huge undertaking, but how many people ask us what's the best certification? Why don't we make our own? Let's make a curriculum based on all the things we feel should have been in all the other certs, like things that are actually going to help people become better coaches and trainers. And it took us over a year to put, we had a 50 years combined experience. Putting that all together in a curriculum took over a year, and now it's evolved over the last 7. But that's how it came about. It wasn't a master plan. It was just what we felt was out of necessity.
And I think that's what most smart businessmen do, is they look at trends and they look at what's needed, and then they go about obviously producing something that's going to help the economy or whatever, whatever the issue is. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and we got some questions here from Twitter and Instagram. I'll make sure we get these out there. One question from Michael David Smith on Twitter was, any advice on setting medium to long-term goals? I'm committed to my workouts and in good shape, at least for a 44-year-old man. Washed up meathead, he says. He's obviously a follower. But sometimes I feel like I'm working out to work out and wondering if I should do, work towards a specific goal.
Well, yeah, as much as I love training, I would assume, not putting words in your mouth, but I feel like most of us feel the same way. Like, training for something is so much better. Like, I love to train, but to just come in my basement and be like, what am I going to do today? As opposed to training for something, even if you're not a competitive athlete, make your goals. So if the question was like helping come up with some long-term or moderate term goals, I would say first and foremost, define your goals and make them very, very specific and objective. Write them down and make them as specific as possible. The more specific they are, the more of a chance you have of accomplishing them. Like you said, you're 44-year-old washed up meathead in pretty good shape. Like, you don't want to, the worst thing you could do is say, oh, my goal is to quote unquote get in shape or get stronger, because what the hell does that mean? That's going to make you feel like, why am I coming to the gym each day? Like, what am I really working for? For sure. When, like, for example, 2 years ago on my birthday, or a couple months before my birthday, I was feeling that exact same way. Like, I'm not really training for anything. I'm not as motivated. So for the first time, I had never bench pressed double my body weight. It was like a meathead goal I always had, was never able to do it. So that's instead of just saying I want to get stronger, that's a very specific goal. I want to bench press double my body weight on June 21st of this year. I have, 4 months to do it. Here's what I need to do. And then you sit down and then you work backwards from there. So I had a very specific, objective, measurable goal. I wrote it down, and then I worked backwards by creating little mini short-term goals. So I knew, hey, I can't be 230 pounds because I'm not going to be able to bench 460, but I've benched 420 in my lifetime before, just at a heavier weight. So goal number one, I want to go, I think I weighed 218 at the time. I said, get down to 210 pounds or less. Boom. All right, my bench press needs to improve this many pounds. So let's put together, what do you need to get a bigger bench? I got to hit, the upper back hard, the triceps. And I just developed the program from there, and I had short-term goals along the way. I think too many people think too far, and they have their 5-year plan or whatever, and they get impatient and it gets lost. Focus on what you need to do today, tomorrow, this week first. Have tunnel vision and just be super engrossed in accomplishing the short-term goal. For me at that time, it was, I need to go from eating 4,000 calories a day to 2,700 calories a day. I could do that right now, today. So I'm going to focus on nailing my diet, nailing my macros, hitting this workout, and then check that off the list. Mission accomplished, one day down. And when you take it like that, one day at a time, it's crazy. Like the 4 months came, and those little progress I made each day, each week, I ended up accomplishing the goal after it was about 4.5 months from when I decided I wanted to do it. But it all happened because I had a specific measurable goal, and then I had little mini short-term 1 day, 1 week goals along the way that kind of kept me motivated and kept me honest with my habits and my daily rituals.
I mean, that goes for almost everything in life, in my opinion.
Yes.
I think that's something, even with business, family life, being a husband, being a father, you should have those long-term, short-term, medium goals there. And like you said, Joe, like I think you may have said this too in the past, but I hate when somebody says that, like, oh, it must be nice, or
I hate that expression.
Or like, yeah, man, you're lucky. I'm like, I'm lucky. Like, I'm fucking lucky. Yeah. I've been grinding since I was 19, 20 years old with my head down. And then finally I looked up, and now I have more goals to accomplish. So with that, it's just, again, winning the day like you're talking about. And then that'll take you to the ultimate goal. That was good, man. So we'll go to the next one. Gunnar Miller from Twitter says, thoughts on how to progressively plan metabolic conditioning for functional use. how to peak at the right time as far as conditioning. He says he's pretty good with strength peaking, but as conditioning goes, he doesn't know what he's doing. And it's specifically for combat sports.
Okay. Yeah. So conditioning.
I want to hear this. Joe. This is for me.
Conditioning is specific. So as you know, you could do all the airdyne assault bike freaking intervals you want, but like if you want to get better as an MMA fighter and be able to fight 3 5-minute rounds or 5 5-minute rounds, at some point you need to go and fight 5-minute rounds in an octagon in a cage. If you want to be even Triple H, I train him. He wrestles like once a year, which is tougher for him than when he was wrestling year round. Most people, that sounds kind of counterintuitive. Like, why would that be tougher? His body gets a break. No, it's actually harder because his body's not in that wrestling shape. So we could do all the metabolic, conditioning circuits in the weight room, but even like a sport like pro wrestling, he's like, or the entertainment aspect of it. Yeah, but running those ropes, I know me, I think I'm like in decent shape. The first time we did a seminar at the WWE Performance Center, I ran those ropes like 3 times back and forth. I was freaking gasping for air, like about to spit up a lung. So conditioning is specific to your sport. So know that to peak for that sport, whatever it may be, whether it's a mixed martial arts fight, pro wrestling, football player, you need to, as the season or the event gets closer, you need to make the conditioning more specific. MMA, as you know better than anyone, Phil, it's a little tricky because that also doesn't mean you get in a cage and you fight full go and beat the shit out of each other for 5 minutes 4 times a week. You obviously can't do that, but within reason, you need to make the conditioning as specific as possible. And I could, not knowing you, it's tough to give specifics without knowing the specific case. But the best general advice I could give when it comes to conditioning is, and this is anything, use the same principles. You said you're good with the strength training. Conditioning, the principles aren't much different. You want it to be specific. You only have so much energy reserve. Your body, your central nervous system, it knows stress. So you can't just add stuff on top. Like, you can't keep your same lifting program and say, now I want to get in great fighting shape, so I'm just going to add a whole bunch of fighting on top of my strength training. There's a reason why, the top MMA fighters aren't doing a bodybuilding split and lifting 5 times a week, doing 30 sets a workout. They have too much other stuff that's more important going on. So my best advice would be, as you want to peak and you want your conditioning becomes more important and your strength becomes more maintenance, you need to subtract. Every time you add something needs to be subtracted. So think of your energy reserve as like a water bottle, where every time you work out, you're filling that bottle up a little bit. Strength workout, fill it up. Conditioning workout, fill it up. You only have so much space. So if you're going to add more conditioning, make sure you make those strength training sessions a little more maintenance. And then that's how you're able to peak, when it's the right dosage of the different types of training. And you need to know for yourself where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, what you need more of, what you could kind of just maintain and still be all right. But once you figure that puzzle out, I think it'll be much easier for you to peak for whatever you're looking to peak for.
Yeah, managing fatigue in that sport is obviously huge. Now, Joe, you work with Mickey Gall, you worked with Dan Hardy, you know how that is, and you're balancing out so many different things. There's so many moving parts. It's very important to understand the body as a whole, from the micro level all the way up. So with that one, how much time you have left? You good?
Whatever you need.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right, cool. All right, we'll get to the next one though. Bob Clinton, believe it or not, Bob Clinton, Twitter. Bob, Bill, almost there. What are the best exercises and protocols for pregnant clients? That's a good one.
Ooh, yeah, I've trained a decent amount. Not my top clientele, but certainly my wife tried training her when still trying to train her.
I hear you, man.
But yeah, I think, well, first, definitely don't stop training. And women will tell you this way better than we can. All the women that I know that trained and then continue, are people who just are into training and then continue to train, all seem to have better pregnancies and just they tolerate labor and childbirth better. I don't know if they're used to just pushing themselves in the gym so they're able to tolerate it a little bit more. If it's a hormonal thing, but certainly you don't want to be someone who just I know I'm a guy, so I'm always sensitive. Like, I don't know what you go through, but clearly I know you need rest. You're kind of living and eating and everything is for 2 or 3 or how if you're having twins, so you certainly need rest. But I would continue to train. Just be smart. Like, things that I avoided or I wouldn't program when I knew some of the females that I've trained that were, once they come in the gym and say, hey, I'm pregnant. For example, like single leg, I do a ton of unilateral work, but I would continue that because I think balance is super important, but I would have them do hand supported unilateral work just to, we want to reduce the risk of them falling or, I'm always standing close by, but just to make it a little safer and still get some of the benefits of unilateral training. If they're doing a split squat, I have them lightly holding on to the rack or even like a foam roller just to give them a little bit more balance and stability. I would cut out we don't do a ton of heavy overhead stuff anyway, but once you're into the pregnancy, a few months in, I wouldn't do any heavy overhead stuff. Obviously, like prone stuff, laying on your stomach, you want to stay away from that type of stuff. But otherwise, for the most part, within reason, I had all the females continue training. Many of them trained into 8, 9. Some of them went right up to the pregnancy. I know my wife was more like about 8 months. She was having twins, so she just felt like she was about to explode those last couple weeks. And besides walking, that was super important. But besides that, didn't do much. So I would say listen to your body. If you're a female and you're pregnant, you're more in tune with your body than anyone. But during that process, stay away from any balancing, laying on your stomach, heavy overhead stuff. Just be smart and safe with the training. You don't want to, not to bash CrossFit, but you don't want to, when you're fatigued, you don't want to be doing high rep, heavy stuff while you're fatigued. I would hope that would be common sense, but common sense ain't so common sometimes. So throw that out there.
Yeah, I would probably honestly thinking about sled walks, anything with anything like you have the pit shark, right? You have the pit shark. I have the belt squat from Elite FTS. I think that ATP trainer. I think those would be pretty solid, just for decompressing the spine. More decompressive stuff than I said.
Avoid kind of heavy overhead work. Also, you don't like a heavy barbell on your back. You don't want that when you're any. That's a better way of putting it. The highly compressive stuff, I would stay away from. I focus, and most people should be doing this anyway, but really emphasize the posterior chain, upper and lower body, upper back, because obviously now you got disproportionate weight just sitting on your stomach, so you get a lot of low back problems, upper back, neck issues from being, having all that weight anterior. So you want to offset that the best you can with a strong upper back, good posture, glutes, hamstrings, that type of stuff, super important.
Yeah, I was I always like Mark Bell's hip circle with that.
Yes.
I love that thing, man. He sends me 50 of them. So I'm like, keep them coming. Keep them coming, Mark. All right, so the next question. So This one is from Coach Sergey96 on Instagram. What advice would you give your younger self?
Oh man,
maybe a loaded question. I don't know.
Yeah, that's freaking a lot of things. But this might sound cliche, but now that I've gotten older, this is the true. This is my true answer. At least the first thing that pops into my head. I'm sure I'll think of something else an hour from now. But
yeah,
man, to enjoy the ride and like appreciate things a little more. I do truly love what I do, and I'm super passionate about this stuff. Obviously, I've been doing it for 24 years, and like you, I've always been very busy and in a good way. Like, you know, training people all day. We talked about driving to Connecticut at midnight, getting home 3 a.m, not sleeping, wake up the next morning, do it again, go.
Yep.
And once you have kids too, I think it hits you because they grow up so fast, and you go, whoa, like, man, I wish I would have appreciated when they were 2 years old, 3 years old, a little more. And, you know, all those little things, everything goes by so fast. I rarely sit back and appreciate some of the things I've accomplished. Like, even things hanging up in the gym, Men's Health, it named us like one of the top 10 gyms in the country a number of different times. And those things all just happened, but I never, like, I sit back and I go, wow, that's kind of that's a cool accomplishment. And we had a documentary filmed at our gym, which is 10 years ago now. That was like a blur. Even like training Triple H and being backstage at WrestleMania and just doing a lot of cool things. You're just so in the moment, and you're always so busy. I just kind of do them, and then 10 years go by and you go, wow, I almost didn't even enjoy it when it happened because I was on to the next thing. And so I wouldn't change the grind and the hustle like at all, but I would tell myself to, like, hey, every now and then just slow down for a second and appreciate some of the things you accomplished, because, you know, what good is it if you don't ever just kind of, I don't want to wait until I'm 80, 90 years old to say, you know, appreciate some of the things I've done. So being more in the moment and appreciating them while they're happening rather than always just, you know, going on to the next thing.
Yeah, I think also understanding like your daily routine and organization is a big thing too as well. That can help with quote unquote balance, you know, and I think that's something that I've actually been able to accomplish now. That, Joe, remember we talked, I don't know how long ago I was on the podcast on the Industrial Strength Show, maybe like a year ago or something, maybe a year and a half. But things have changed with me tremendously from an organizational standpoint, just from basic understanding of what I need to do at what particular time and how long I have to do it. And that right there can kind of put us in a better position to make sure that we're well balanced and we have those times with our families. But again, you know, it's hard when you have 1,000 things going on. But
and it's never going to be true. Like, you know, it'll never. And I don't know anyone who's successful, quote unquote, and, you know, has perfect balance. I think that's the thing. There's no balance. But if like for me with my kids now, if I'm gonna only be able to spend an hour with them, I want it, if it's a quality hour where I am present, and I'll take that all day, every day, as opposed to, I know, you know, dads who work at home and they're with their kids all day, but they're staring at their phone all day. They're not paying attention. Like, so it might not be balanced, but the little time you have here and there, if you make the most of it and you are present, yes, I agree that is huge in your daily routine.
100%. All right, so that goes into like my next two questions. It's usually what I give all of the guests. So first one, because you are one of the most successful strength and conditioning coaches in the world, I like to ask these to successful people because I like to see if I'm doing the right things, maybe even one-upping you in a way, because I'm a competitor, you know. So what is Joe DeFranco? I know now it puts a little bit of a different spin on things because we are in that pandemic era, but what is your daily routine on a general day?
Yeah, I guess that's what I like about now. My kind of not being just a gym owner. Each day is a little bit different, and because I do get bored very quickly. So, that is one thing I do like is not there aren't, there aren't too many days that are exactly the same, but the commonalities are things that I am a big like schedule guy. I've learned that the things that get scheduled get done. Like if you ever talk to I've done it myself where somebody will ask me something and I go, we'll figure it out. Or, and it's like, that means we'll never talk about that again. You'll never hear from me again. That ain't happening. But you make the schedule in the phone. We say, hey, can you do a podcast at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday, May 20, that gets done. So scheduling, if as far as like kind of success rituals or daily habits, the one constant in my day is each day ends with me preparing my next day. So I don't go to sleep until I make that list of top 3 things I need to get done the next day. And then I have kind of the other, it's like the accessory exercises of a workout type of thing. If you don't always get to them, not the end of the world. But if I have a good day, I'm productive and I bang things out and I have some extra time, here's some things that I got on the horizon that I could get a head start on. So that's my biggest thing is scheduling, because the days do change. But the main things that I'm doing each day now, it's personal training sessions, which aren't in person. They're just via FaceTime, recording my own podcast, which, as you also know, an hour podcast isn't just an hour. You gotta, if you're going to have a guest, you're planning that. If you're going to do a Q&A, you got to round up the questions. Like, it's a lot more time than people realize. So my podcast is only once a week, but like 2 or 3 days worth of prep, not all day, but a couple hours for 2 or 3 days goes into that. We have a DeFranco Insider membership community that we create content for. So creating content for that, pumping stuff out on social media, on Instagram, the free content to keep people. That's how you bring in the new people, and you kind of earn people's, trust and respect. So you got to put that out there. That's all our ways of marketing ourselves. So those are the main, the training, the online content, our certification is constantly evolving. So we're constantly kind of figuring out ways to make the curriculum better for that. So it's depending on the week and the day, those are the main things I'm doing, just to different degrees on different days, depending on the schedule. Gotcha.
Yeah, that Organizing Tomorrow Today is a book that I follow to the T, still to this day. I think I've been doing that since that was something like when I was a kid in grade school. I would have a note next to my bed. That's just always been something. I wish I should have wrote that book back in 1984. You had to jump on them.
There's one aspect that I missed the boat on that one, because you could ask my mom. Like, I was that kid that just felt better having the note and the list of things to do. Even if it was like one thing that I know I wouldn't forget, I would have a piece of paper with one thing, written on that paper. I've always done it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Are you gonna ever write like an autobiography book?
I had a book deal, but they were actually they were torn on whether they wanted me to do a training book or more of like an autobiography, motivational type thing about the story from the tumor to this, kind of turning a storage closet into a successful business. I feel like I'd rather write that one. I started writing a training book, but writing I think if I'm going to do a book, I might end up doing it self-published.
We got them right here. Don't worry. Go JoeDeFranco.com. Go check them out. You know what I mean?
That was my thing. this was like a mainstream kind of book agent that was like, you need to write a book. I'm like, I've written like 7 of them with, me and Smitty put our freaking heart and souls into 7 or 8 books. But they're like, no, the mainstream public, you need a mainstream training book that's all your best stuff, kind of dummy down for the average Joe. So I was working on that, but the proposal alone started to literally drive me crazy, and I started going insane with all the edits, and they would tell me to do one thing and then it changed, and I said, listen, this is not good for my mental health. I'm gonna put the brakes on and revisit this maybe a couple months down the road, because I just I don't know, I might not be cut out for book publishers, and if I'm going to do that book, I might have to self-publish it, because I was having a tough time dealing with people.
I think you'd be better off doing that, man. I think, if anything, you have enough followers that it's going to blow up anyways. So, I mean, listen, I'll buy it if you go.
I appreciate that. You're on my list. You got a free copy coming to you anyway if I ever get the thing done. But I appreciate the support.
No problem. All right, so last question. I'll let you get out of here. So this is the one that I really like to ask everybody. Obviously, we love strong things. We love being strong. We love the personification of strong. My fucking podcast is named Daru Strong. My brand is named that. What does a strong person mean to you? What is the definition of a strong person? It could be anything.
The first word that comes to mind would be someone who's kind. Believe it or not, I don't think that maybe is the definition people think of. And someone that doesn't necessarily, that has enough inner strength that they don't need to constantly compare themselves to others. Like someone who is just a genuinely nice person, cares for other people, has enough, confidence is the best word I could think of, that they and just are secure in their own skin. Like I guess because the thing, when I hear the word strong, my mom, like a lot of people know my dad as this like jacked, crazy dude. He's been on my podcast. Everyone loves him. But true strength, I always go back to my mom. She was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis 30 years ago, has been in a wheelchair, suffers a lot on a daily basis, but you will never see her without a smile. I've never heard her complain once. So I know she's in pain. She's uncomfortable. She hasn't been able to walk for freaking 30 years. That would drive, how many people would have lost it at this point? She's the type that if she meets you, it's all about you. Like she'd be asking, how are you feeling today? What can I do? Is there anything I could do to help you? And, just very comfortable and thankful for everything she has. And I always look at that as like, that's true strength, like secure enough, doesn't have to feel inferior to other people, not feeling sorry for herself because she got dealt a bad hand. Instead, she has that inner strength where she's happy with what she has instead of focusing on the couple things, that she doesn't have. She focuses on the things she has, super kind to anyone and everyone that she meets. And I think that takes a strong person, because a lot of the fake tough guys, and I'm sure some too, like the ones that were kind of the bullies in school until somebody, pushed them back, and then you realize they weren't so strong. That outer shell of like strength and toughness was really because they were freaking hurting inside and very insecure inside. So they tried to put on that outer shell of toughness and I don't care what people think, and I do and say what I want. That's not true strength. To me, it's the exact opposite. It's being kind. It's caring about others. It's being secure in your own skin. Like that's a truly strong person to me.
Yeah, we call those individuals jelly beans. Call them jelly beans. They're hard on the outside.
Hard on the outside and
soft on the inside. So
yeah,
fast.
I like that. Jelly bean. I got to heard that one. That's perfect. That's perfect.
All right, brother. Well, thank you so much, Joe, man. I know you're busy. I'm going to go ahead. I got some clients, some athletes I got to train. Stay on the line real quick, though. I'm going to go ahead and sign us off. Again, Joe DeFranco, guys, go ahead and follow this, man. Joe, go ahead and tell them Instagram, social media, CPPS, all the stuff that they can get on your website, too, as well.
Yeah, my main platform is Instagram. I'm at DeFranco's Gym. And my podcast is the Industrial Strength Show. I drop new episodes every Thursday. My man Phil was on. You can see his episode on there. Listen to his episode if you haven't heard it yet. We'll do another one soon. Yeah. Definitely got to do another one. And the certification, the CPPS certification that we've referred to a couple times here, we are running 20% off the online course, which is the same as the in-person course. We just had a professional camera crew come and film the actual course. So you could go to cppsacademy.com for the online course and then type in the discount code STAY HOME. We wanted to do a little something for, during this freaking quarantine. Hopefully we won't be staying home much longer, but in the meantime, we're giving 20% off when you use the discount code STAY HOME. So cppsacademy.com and then cppsacademy.com/football for our football cert. That is amazing if you deal with football players. That's like a PhD course in football preparation. And you could also use the STAY HOME one-word discount code for that too.
Okay. I'm gonna have to check that one out.
I'm gonna send you the football manual that goes with the course. I'll send that to you. You'll love that.
Nice.
It's amazing.
Thank you, my man. All right, guys. So that's the show. Again, go follow my man. He is one of the best in the industry, if not the best. On the other side of me.
Yes, sir.
Just kidding. All right, guys. I'm out. Thanks for watching.